What if three brilliant minds sat down to debate one of humanity's oldest questions? What is the truth behind God and our existence? Today, you'll hear three very different perspectives: an atheist biochemist, a theist NGO director, and a non-dualist theoretical physicist. Let's begin.
Hi, non-dualist. You are also some kind of God believer, right? Just with a new pseudoscience fashionable disguise?
Hello there.
Actually, I don't believe in believing. Inquiry, experience, and deduction are the ways to reach the truth. When there is belief, truth is no longer important anymore.
But, non-dualist, you know there is God, right?
That depends on what you mean by God. God is an umbrella term, defined differently across different cultures, from Western cultures to Eastern cultures to tribal belief systems. So, what definition of God are you asking about?
The true God is one, the supreme almighty, the ultimate eternal being, who created the universe, including us, the internal, omnipotent, omnipresent, and omniscient being.
Theist, your dedication and your blindness always amaze me. We already know that the universe operates through natural laws. Everything we observe can, in principle, be explained through physics, chemistry, biology, and mathematics. The body, mind, object energies, everything is an evolutionary emergence in this universe after the Big Bang. Anyone who is educated and deducing the theory of reality from scientific evidence can clearly see that. But these complex, sophisticated natural laws cannot exist by themselves, where even a small change can break the symmetry of entire reality. It must require an intelligent source. The fine-tuning of the universe is done by a creator or God who exists independently of the world and governs it.
Sorry to interrupt, but I have a question for the theist. If these complex natural laws are so fine and sophisticated that it needs a creator, how can a more complex, fine-tuned being like God self-exist? There must be a creator of the creator. If a very sophisticated being like God can self-exist without a creator, why can't this reality? Look, I am not arguing against God. I am just pointing out logical flaws in your thinking. If we keep looking in the wrong direction, we cannot see the truth clearly.
I knew that you both are basically atheists. But listen carefully. God doesn't need any creator. God is beyond creation. Actually, the act of creation is not absolute or fundamental like God. God is the first actor who initiated the action of creation. God created everything in this universe: objects, energies, living beings, their ability to act, free will, consciousness. If anything exists, it needs a fundamental ontological creator. God is that creator, the creator of everything.
Your statement has severe logical flaws. Natural phenomena like life and consciousness do not need the existence of God. Neuroscience shows that consciousness is an emergent property of the brain. When the brain dies, consciousness ends. We don't need a divine explanation for that.
But atheists, your statement also has a problem. The hard problem of consciousness still exists in neuroscience and remains unsolved. Neuroscience can explain how neural signals are processed and how information is generated in the brain, but it has failed to explain qualia, the subjective nature of experience itself. We understand how thoughts, emotions, and sensory signals function neurologically, but where is the mechanism that explains the subjective experiencer of these signal-driven processes? Why is there a felt redness when seeing a red flower, rather than merely a blind neural response to a specific wavelength? Despite identifying neural correlates and mapping brain activity, neuroscience still lacks an explanation for why any physical process has a subjective experience at all. Findings from split brain experiments, cases such as hydrocephalus, where individuals retain surprisingly normal conscious functioning despite severe reductions in brain tissue, blind sight patients responding to visual stimuli without conscious visual awareness, these evidences clearly challenges the outdated concept that neural structure causes consciousness. The knowledge argument of Mary's room and the explanatory gap clearly suggests that a complete neurological mechanism of qualia remains unresolved, and neuroscience is repeatedly hitting the wall.
Yes! Now, atheist, you can see. Science can't explain that. It's transcendence to God.
Only God has the power to create consciousness.
But, Theist, why does the ultimate supreme being, God, have the intention to create anything? If there is an intention to create, then there is something to fulfill to God, and God is not ultimate or complete without the creation. Besides, you are still pushing God as an ontological ground and prior to creation. So, if the sophisticated God is that ontologically prior being that does not need another creator, why can't this reality be the same? Can't you see the logical inconsistencies here?
So, who created this reality then, as per your quote-unquote experience and deduction?
Theist, you got one thing right. That is, the act of creation is not absolute. But think more critically. If the act of creation is not absolute and there is no reasonable justification why God created anything at all, then maybe there is no independent and intentional act of creation at all. The creator, creation, and created are just appearances of one undivided thing, where the imagination of creation, creator, and created are appearing.
Non-dualist. It sounds very poetic, beautiful, deep, but practically has no meaning at all. You were just piling up and playing with the words together. A single thing is creator, creation, and created simultaneously? A completely nonsensical idea.
I am not saying creator, creation, and created are independently fundamental and collectively representing a single thing, which would be logically meaningless. I am saying creation, created, and creator are not fundamental at all. They are just the outer appearances of a single, more fundamental underlying thing. Like a movie screen. The story is running on the screen, and all the characters and places are appearing there. But ultimately, there is no place and person on the movie screen. Think carefully. All these things we are discussing now, even the context of our discussion, that is the reality that we all see from our birth, only exist just because we have a subjective awareness. All these experiences, sensations, memories, thoughts, emotions, arguments are appearing within that subjective awareness. Without it, whether anything exists or not has no meaning. I am saying that the sheer ability of awareness is the fundamental reality. The physical world, our body, mind, emotion, thoughts, all are the emerging appearances within that fundamental awareness, like a movie on a screen.
So, non-dualist, you are saying there is no independent God. Just our subjective awareness is fundamental, and everything other are just appearing within our awareness. But there is a major loophole. We are different people. How are the things appearing within your awareness about this room, this argument, these conversations arising exactly the same in my awareness or in an atheist's awareness?
Now you are asking a very good question in the right direction. Yes, the appearing reality that we are observing is the same, because fundamentally, the awareness within you, the awareness within me, and the awareness within the atheist are not separate and independent awareness. The observer and observed are non-separate and even non-dual. The awareness is a singular, undivided, ultimate foundation of reality. The singular awareness is experiencing a single reality, like having a dream.
But then your logic has another major problem. You and I are subjectively different. We are different people. If our consciousness is singular, why can't I directly experience what you are actually feeling or thinking? Nor can you. How are you claiming our awareness is singular at all?
A good, insightful question. Then first we have to clarify what I mean by awareness or pure consciousness. Anything that you experience or anything you are aware of or anything appears in your awareness, like your surroundings, your body, your thoughts, emotions, your identity, can't be your awareness. But what is experiencing or observing all these is your awareness or pure consciousness. Fundamentally, the pure consciousness is singular, But you and I and anyone are just different lenses or perceptions of experiencing the same reality by that singular awareness or pure consciousness. These lenses are interacting with this reality by having functional and physical boundaries, since they are part of this physically bounded reality, through having different senses, memory, body, mind, self-identity, etc.
It sounds cool, but not practically possible. How does a single consciousness become multiple just by having different life, body, mind, identities, and memories? After all, if it is a single awareness, it should have shared experience, not split independent experiences.
Atheist, I hope you already know that physics showed that space and time are interconnected, and therefore denoted as space-time, and it is not fundamental but an emerging property of this universe. I could argue with you using the role of emerging space-time in the appearance of split perception, but for a simplistic understanding, I am giving a very practical example. Just think about the dissociative identity disorder patients. They have a single consciousness, but different, distinct, independent functional identities or alters with different habits, thoughts, emotions, memories, and even personalities. Each alter can internally communicate with other alters, but all those alters fundamentally are a single consciousness of a particular patient, but they are identifying themselves as separate beings. Similarly, we are the alters of this singular consciousness, where the emerging space-time is enabling us to perceive the physical and temporal differences or multiplicity between us. But fundamentally, the thing that is currently observing you through my eyes is the same thing that is observing me through your eyes.
May I ask something? Non-dualist, if everything is made of consciousness, as you claim, why aren't stones, water, and other non-living objects conscious like us? And why do different beings seem to possess different levels of consciousness, from microbes and trees to chimpanzees and humans?
Let me correct one point. Everything is not literally made of consciousness, like a pot made out of clay. Rather, everything is the outward appearance of a single underlying consciousness when it observes itself through different lenses or perspectives. Here's a practical analogy of why there are different levels of perceived awareness in different beings. A beam of light is invisible by itself. It becomes visible only when it is reflected by something. Likewise, the moon has no light of its own. It reflects the sun's light, allowing us to see it at night, not the light rays themselves. In the same way, the complexity of a physical structure, from a stone to a tree, a microbe, a chimpanzee, and finally a human, influences how strongly it can reflect consciousness. Some structures, such as the human brain, reflect it more vividly, while others, like a stone, have an almost negligible capacity to do so.
Okay, but if consciousness is singular, why did consciousness suddenly start to see this dream and multiply itself? Why does it need this dream? And why is this dream that much mathematically accurate and governed by very specific natural laws? Why not a random, magical, dreamy world?
There is no sequence of action of creation as you're imagining. Awareness is beyond space and time, and therefore beyond causality and action. Awareness, or pure consciousness, is not an independent person that suddenly decided, let's have a dream. Awareness is a phenomenon or quality that needs something to be aware of. The word awareness itself represents that it is a quality, not a being. So awareness is aware of itself because there is nothing other than it. This self-reflective action initiates the illusion of duality, which in recurrence causes multiplicities. So awareness is not sequentially prior to experience or multiplicity, but it is more fundamental and absolute than physical reality. It is a timeless phenomenon of awareness beyond time and causality. In terms of the apparent precision of natural laws, I would offer a well-known scientific principle. The stability we observe is an emergent outcome of all possible configurations, where only those capable of sustaining a coherent and persistent reality remain. Unstable alternatives would naturally fail to persist. In physics, consider the principle of least action. A system follows the path for which the action is stationary. In quantum mechanics, light does not literally test one path. Rather, all possible paths contribute, and through interference, most possibilities cancel out, leaving only the single most optimum observed outcome. Stability emerges from underlying possibilities. This particular reality with specific natural laws remains because this particular reality is sustained from all underlying possibilities.
It still sounds very odd. You were saying awareness is not a thing, it is a quality, and from that quality or phenomena, the objects or things appeared? How is that even possible? An object is more fundamental than its quality or property. How can a quality or property be more fundamental than the object? I think it is the major limitation of the theory that you are giving. If consciousness is the fundamental quality, then it is the quality of what?
I did not expect that from you, atheist, especially as someone with a science background. Modern physics has already moved far beyond the classical notion of the matter is fundamental principle. In quantum field theory, what we call electrons, protons, and other particles are not fundamentally objects. They are better understood as excitations of underlying relational and mathematical fields, characterized by properties such as probability, amplitudes, phase, spin, and information-like mathematical structures. Whether through quantum information theory, quantum fields, or holographic approaches, physics increasingly suggests that relational and informational structures and structural properties or qualities are more fundamental than the object or particle itself. You should be aware of the scientific concept of it from bit. Material substances emerge from informational or qualitative fields, and so quality can be more fundamental than the object.
Okay. Although your theory appears to be logical and internally consistent, there is still a major gap. You claimed that all this physicality, the entire universe, is just an informational expression of a single consciousness, which is still just a hypothesis with tons of assumptions. What evidence do you have to prove that reality is just a single consciousness?
Yes, it is true that it is not 100% proven yet, but scientific findings are increasingly providing evidence supporting the ontologically non-dual nature of reality. Scientific frameworks such as quantum field theory, evidence of quantum entanglement, and unified field approaches already point to the fact that reality is not a collection of truly separate things, but particles are excitations of single interconnected underlying fields that might be the foundation behind all forces. John Wheeler's It from Bit suggests physical reality emerges from singular field information through the mechanism of the participatory universe. David Bohm's implicate order proposes an undivided wholeness behind existence beneath evolutionary apparent fragmentation. The holographic principle implies the universe may be a deeply interconnected informational system. Renowned cognitive scientist Donald Hoffman proposed that perceptions act like a desktop interface on a computer, while proposing the theory of conscious realism. Neuroscientist Carl Pribram's holographic brain model showed how the brain operates much like a quantum hologram of deep interconnectedness across reality. Now, coming to how scientists interpreted modern scientific evidence, Nobel Prize-winning quantum pioneer Erwin Schrödinger argued consciousness is fundamentally singular. One of the primary architects of quantum mechanics, Nobel laureate Niels Bohr, explicitly said that the classical divide between the observer and the observed is an illusion. Revolutionary scientist Nikola Tesla completely rejected the idea of a universe made of isolated, solid chunks of matter and urges to think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. Sir Albert Einstein said we are merely an optical illusion of consciousness, temporarily separated from the universal whole. Even several scientifically informed metaphysical frameworks support a similar view, including analytical idealism, dual-aspect monism, and neutral monism. Each explicitly interprets scientific evidence through a unified ontological foundation of reality. How much more supportive evidence and direct indications do you need, atheist?
Whatever you guys are trying to prove, none of them proves that a supreme almighty God does not exist.
Of course God exists, theist, but not the way that you are imagining. That supreme almighty God is not a separate, independent being sitting apart from reality above the sky, looking at us and individually granting our wishes and becoming satisfied for being worshipped. Rather, the reality you are now experiencing is itself the expression of God. Your awareness, where all these experiences are appearing, is the fundamental reality of God. The God I am referring to is not a personified God, rather the property of godliness, the pure, singular consciousness. But your twisted definition of God does not prove that the real almighty God does not exist. Nothing from science can prove that God does not exist.
Sorry to interrupt, but Theist, the point you're making is not logically sound. An assumption does not need to be disproven in order to remain as an assumption. It needs evidence to become a justified claim. For example, if I claim that a snake is floating somewhere in our solar system, you cannot conclusively disprove it because you cannot search every inch of space. Likewise, we cannot completely rule out a giant four-headed octopus sleeping in the deepest parts of the Pacific Ocean. Yet the inability to disprove such claims does not make them true. We accept claims as real when sufficient evidence supports them. Similarly, I am not assuming God exists. You are. Therefore, the burden is to provide evidence for God's existence, not to disprove it.
But the non-dual definition of existence and God is still very confusing. Non-dualist, you said that there is no separate God than us. Then what is your opinion about how reality actually functions with your definition of godliness, along with you, me, or anyone in this reality?
Okay, let me put it with a simple metaphor to understand it easily. Just imagine the structure of the ocean. In an ocean, there are many waves, foams, bubbles rising and falling, each with different shapes, sizes, and motion, rising, falling, and colliding with each other. But all these waves and foams are just exterior shapes or appearances of the same water that the ocean is made of. Whether it is an individual wave or the ocean, what we see is fundamentally the water that is taking different shapes, rising and falling and moving. That water, I call it God. Me, you, atheists, audiences, a tree, even the non-loving objects across this universe are waves, foams, bubbles with different shapes, size, body, mind, structural complexity, cognitive ability. When you see each wave individually, then they are independent individual waves, different from one another. When you see all waves collectively, you see the ocean. You see everything is in proper, sophisticatedly mapped synchronization. You identify the entirety of that ocean as God, governing each wave. But actually, no one is governing no one. Ocean or waves, everything is just the different appearance of the same water. The waves are the small representations of water, and the ocean is the larger appearance of water. Only water is fundamental and ultimate. You can identify yourself as a wave and see other waves and foams as separate beings. Or you can identify the entirety of the ocean as a separate God governing you. But all these are merely an illusion of perception. But the pure consciousness or awareness that is expressed as you and everything around you is the ultimate and fundamental reality, like the water of the ocean. You can definitely call it God or give it any name as you prefer, such as Shiva, Brahman, Rigpa, Tao, Tathagata Garba, the One, Ein Sof, the Great Spirit, or any name. It is so fundamental, absolute, ultimate, as well as fulfilling and godly upon realization that I also prefer to call it God.
Then you're saying there is no personal God. Then there's no meaning of ethics, no right or wrong, no good and evil?
Of course ethics matters, but not in the way you think. There is no separate godlike being sitting somewhere micromanaging everything in real time, rewarding or punishing individuals. Fundamentally, good and evil are appearances within the larger whole as constrictive and destructive balancing components. But ethics, right and wrong, good and evil, still exist and very much matter at the practical, physical, and functional level of life. Good and evil operate through an interconnected web of actions and consequences known as karma. If you do not study when you should, you will get poor marks in an exam, not because some separate God is punishing you, but because actions have consequences. It does not require a separate personified God. Reality is woven from an incredibly complex network of causes and effects, where every node is directly or indirectly connected to countless others. If you act destructively, the consequences eventually return to you through the same network. The more blind and unaware you are, the more chaotic mistakes you make, and the more you suffer from that chaos returning to you. When the illusion of separateness dissolves, you begin to find yourself in every being, even in every aspect of this reality. Then love, compassion, and harmony are no longer just acts of graciousness, virtue, or goodness, but they become your natural state of being. You do not need a fundamental external moral rulebook, strict commandments, heaven, or hell for that.
So funny. You are saying there is no personified God, but still doing the same thing the theist would do? Why do you meditate, pray, and chant mantras? It is nothing but hypocrisy.
Firstly, atheist, your godlessness and my godlessness are not the same at all. I said the fundamental reality, the pure consciousness, is internal, infinite, beyond measurement, where physical reality is just its appearance. You can give it any name, it does not matter. I prefer to call it God. Now, coming to meditation and chanting. Meditation, or meditative prayer, is not about demanding anything from God. It is simply the process of grounding the body and mind into a more stable and clearer state of awareness. Praying and chanting mantras are ritualistic methods that help cultivate concentration. They do not hold any special significance by themselves. What matters is that the process can help you reach a clearer state of awareness through which you can recognize the ultimate truth within yourself and in every aspect of reality around you. Even, there is no single path to attaining this clarity and realization. Meditation, chanting, bhakti, everyday work, social service, anything practiced with sufficient concentration and mindfulness can gradually dissolve the ego and the illusion of misidentification with a separate me. You begin to realize that the pure consciousness or awareness within you is not personal. Rather, your body, mind, thoughts, emotions, the people around you, the trees, the stones, everything is a different expression of the same awareness that shines within you. And the experience is so fulfilling and blissful that there are no adequate words to truly describe it.
So, non-dualist, what are you implying then by all these? Should we all follow you in your non-dual explanation of God, leaving all our faith behind?
No, not at all. Non-dualism is not asking for your blind faith. It is not a religious identity, nor does it have adherence to a particular doctrine. Non-dualism is not against any religion. Rather, it appears as a recurring insight across many spiritual traditions throughout history. It is expressed in Advaita Vedanta, Kashmir Shaivism, Taoism, Zen Buddhism, Mahayana and Theravada Buddhism, Christian mysticism like Meister Eckhart, and Sufism in Islam, all pointing to underlying unity beyond apparent separation. Ultimately, you do not have to believe any of this. Question everything. Explore reality for yourself. If this perspective is true, it should be discoverable through direct experience, not merely accepted because a book, a guru, or a philosopher says so. Until then, keep an open mind, keep investigating, and follow the evidence wherever it leads. That is all I am suggesting.
At the end of this discussion, the question is now yours. Which argument did you find the most convincing, and why? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this discussion, don't forget to like, subscribe for more thought-provoking debates. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.